So I'll tell you one thing that we should do is, business schools is an American term. I know what I'm going to say may not be as popular with the students. So one thing is true, that which institute you get into, it'll give you some kind of an advantage. But that's not the only advantage. Irrespective of which institute you get into, if you are good, no one's going to stop you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome on board. Today, I'm sitting here in Goa Institute of Management with Dr. Ajit Parulekar, who is the director of the institution. Sir, past how many years?
Director or at the institute?
At the institute.
25 years this year.
Wow. This is so
Lifetime.
crazy. This is so crazy. And were you instrumental जब ये sir building बन रही थी, ईंट रख रहे थे? Were you there?
Oh yeah, a lot. I mean, I've been there right from the time this land was selected, till first brick laid, till every building.
Okay, this is so amazing.
Yeah.
I was telling sir off the camera, I've met many directors in life and he's one of my favorites. Sir, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's the SPJain blood in sir. Sir, how many years at SPJain Bombay?
So I've taught for many years. Must be like 10 years. I must have gone and taught a course.
That's
Yeah,
why I like you, I think.
Yeah,
That's
is
why
it?
I like you. How do you compare? Let's talk about business schools today.
Yeah.
Me and sir were discussing off camera a lot of things in life which should be off camera only. but sir, how do you compare? Let's talk about SPJain for a minute. Is it a good institution?
Yeah, of
Are they doing
course.
everything right?
I think it's a good institution. Yeah. And I think overall, I feel that a lot of the private institutions are phenomenal. The good ones.
Yeah.
You of course have the challenge with private institutions is, at the bottom end you will find fly-by-night operators, money-centered and all of that.
Yeah.
Do you look at all the top private institutions? I would want my kids to go and study there.
Yeah, not the IIMs.
Yeah, because look at, bureaucracy is low.
Yeah.
Leadership is strong.
Yeah.
Governance is good.
Right.
Efficiency is high. So if you look at all of these, I can just tell you, for example, you look at an IIM spends roughly 2.5 times what either a GIM or an SPJain or an IMT Ghaziabad spends on the same activity with the same efficiency.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
Sir, your friends of IIM Nagpur and others are also watching this video.
Oh, but everyone knows that. It is not about them alone. It's a difference between government and private. The discipline that private has. It is not an IIM and GIM. It's about industry and PSU. It is about Air India versus Indigo. It's the same comparison everywhere. When you have metrics, when you have, so to say, competent management, when you have, economic efficiency coming in, you will find that every rupee, dollar, whatever will be used way more efficiently. Then you will find when taxes are paying, public goods, that's a known thing. It's not what I'm talking is not my theory.
Yeah.
This basic economics, kind of microeconomics. First year, first 3-4 classes, you learn this kind of stuff.
That's so cool. By the way, sir, I've 9 of the IIM directors have been on my channel because I'm in the Pan IIM conference.
Yeah.
And I love most of them. And but as I said, so I really like you because the ethos what you carry and the way you're doing things. I don't want to apple butter you and impress you with whatever I'm saying, but I genuinely, is it the integrity you bring in? Because the students also love you. All the students. I've been coming to GIM past 5 years now. In fact, my first talk was called Ribandar Talk.
Yes, of
Ever
course.
in the history which I've given out of SPJain Bombay was that
Sure.
Ribandar Talk.
Sure.
So I really glad I'm coming back. But what do you think why we are different?
So we are different because everything about us is different in that sense. As I said, we were founded by this Jesuit priest. They had no money at all. So GIM is one of the institutes that started without capital. It just started with 6 IIM trained professors coming in here and this Jesuit priest coming here and around 10 people from Goa who said, we are here to help you. Zero investment. And we only worked on great quality students coming in, build a brand. I joined GIM in 2000, 7 years after the institute started. I didn't join a startup. I joined an institute that was already ranked in the top 20 business schools in the country.
That time?
In 7 years. Can you beat that? With no investment. So what happens is, what's different if you ask? This integrity and all that is because most of my faculty, people who work here, me included, it's my institute. For each of us, we feel it's my institute. And I think that's very difficult to get in organizations.
Wow. What made you stuck, sir? Here only.
So what more do you want? Goa is a phenomenal place to live. You know that everybody in Delhi NCR who has money buys a house in Goa and lives here.
Everybody is buying a house in Goa. Sir,
So-
in the flight, I was just thinking, just leave Bombay and come here.
You fly to Goa, you don't find one seat vacant on a flight from wherever you're flying in. So the first part is life in Goa good? Yes, of course. It's a great place to be. It may not be as good for young people. It's a good place to study, but it's not a great place to start a career because you want to be in corporate headquarters. You come into business school, you don't want to be in a branch office or doing, some remote place unless
Yeah.
it's a structured training program. So for that, I think after you study here, you'll want to go and start your careers in the metros because you're closer to corporate headquarters. You get to see different functions in action. You get to see what leadership is kind of like. So keeping that aside, I think it's a great institution to be in the kind of freedom that we get to do cutting edge stuff, launch new programs, bring in new technology, all of that stuff.
Sir was
Very
the
easier to
first
do.
one in the country to launch the healthcare management program. Correct me, sir, if I'm
That's
wrong.
right. Yeah.
Wow. And sir, analytics also, you were number 1, number 2 in the country to think about
Yes.
analytics.
So we were the second one after this. IIM Calcutta, IIT Kharagpur, and ISI launched one. We were the second ones, and this was must be 7, 8, 9 years back. Today everybody does it. So we're happy to be a pioneer in that.
Off the camera, I was saying, sir, analytics is the future. Analytics. He's like, analytics ho gaya yaar abhi. Go to corporate and talk analytics. He's like, now it's all AI. Is
That
it
is
true,
right.
sir? Analytics is done? Matlab,
Yeah,
now?
absolutely. So anything you want to do in technology, this is what
Yeah.
it's going to be. If you think you're going to run a program in technology and that's going to last for 30 years, it's not going to happen. So what's happened is our program on analytics today that we teach, as compared to what we were doing when we started 7, 8 years back, it's a different animal altogether. And it's a different animal altogether because at the time that we started in 2018, there was no Gen AI. So I'm saying
Yeah.
till 2023 November, the kids who came into business school campuses, you ask them, do you know ChatGPT? Hardly anybody had heard of it. 1 year later, you had hardly anybody who had not heard of it.
True
right?
that. True that.
So I'm saying across, I talk to kids who are in school when I'm called to give lectures on, what the future is going to be and stuff like that. And I ask, how many of you know and use ChatGPT? Like school kids have 75% of them are using ChatGPT. So when you're running a tech program, it has to be changed. So LLMs have been taught here now for a couple of years.
Now it's
And that's
talk
the
of town.
change.
Yeah.
When we started the program, that's not true. So if you look at the big data analytics program at GIM, it's called big data analytics. But today, if you had to really ask me, it's really artificial intelligence, technology and management is really more or less what the program is
What
about.
the analytics is moved
Yeah.
down. Yeah, things have to change. I think, sir and me were discussing off camera. I was saying, sir, nowadays technology is like girlfriends. Yeah. You cannot get married to one. You have to keep moving, right, sir?
Yep,
Whatever
that's
was like, when we were starting our career, we used to use the language called C. And by the time we were graduating, it was C# was coming up by
Very
the end of
much.
4 years. And then when I joined Wipro, my first company, so Java, we were trained on Java. And my final job was J2E. And how the languages have been changed. Though the crux is similar at that time, but now the things have also changed. But you have to keep changing. You cannot marry to C and say, I'm
Yeah.
going to have my career with
But
one
the
syllable.
changes that time that took 4 years.
Yeah.
Now it will happen in like 6 months to a year.
True that.
Yeah. Speed is much faster.
True that.
Yeah.
Does it also mean that I'm also feeling a little bit tired? Like, it's too much happening, yaar. Kitna bhagenge.
Yeah.
So sometimes I also feel like, life is like a hamster. You're running. You're doing it past 25 years now at the same institution, growing it. Of course, you've done fantabulous. But you don't get tired?
Everybody gets tired, at the end of the day, but it's great to be tired. What you don't want is not getting tired. You want to sweat it out, right? The satisfaction that you get when you really sweat it out, then if you're saying tired means you say bored, that's something that you need to reinvent yourself. So I can tell you that so my area is not technology, but it's branding.
Yeah.
So the branding that I did in the industry 25 years back, the branding that I did at GIM 15 years back, I don't think there is even like a minuscule amount of that's relevant today. 15 years back, digital was kind of, somewhere there in the future. Today it's like kind of, a newborn kid comes out with a phone. Right? That's what the reality is. And same with kind of any discipline you look at. And therefore, I don't think I'm tired. I think all the time that you're looking for is the speed that at which you need to reinvent yourself. I think that keeps you running.
People ask me why should we join GIM? ये program होगा till the time sir is here. You can join. उसके बाद मुझे नहीं पता.
No, that's not true. We have 85 faculty members who are fabulous here. Come on.
Sir, captain of the ship is important, you know.
Of course it is. I agree that it's important.
I always say, bet your money on the captain. बाकी चीजें, of course. I met Bala sir, I met Hanish sir, I met the whole the GIM family.
You can see how passionate they are, right? I mean, great guys.
Definitely, yes, definitely. Great, sir. Let's move in forward. What do you don't like about business schools these days in general? Don't name anyone.
So I'll tell you one thing that we should do is, business schools is an American term. We should do something, and they are questioning that. I think we should call ourselves, even I've used the term many times, business school, because it seems fashionable. We should call ourselves Institute of Management. And I think that's a great thing. I don't know whether it happened by accident. Because what happens, see, the challenge today you're seeing in the world is because business schools view themselves as business schools. And I think we should really see ourselves as being enablers of societal transformation rather than seeing ourselves as enablers of business entities. And I think that's where all the challenge is. If you look at all the criticism of business school, the criticism of business school is you're too business, which means too profit oriented. And I think, it's very important to be profit oriented, but you have to be able to look at everything else. Look at models that are great for the environment. Look at models that are good for people. Look at models that are good for society. You have to look at, where is it that most countries are today suffering? They're suffering because poor governance of governments, right? What do you need? Management. I can tell you anywhere in the country you look at, our country has a lot of rivers, lot of abundant and natural resources we have, but we have shortage of power, we have shortage of water, we have abundant electricity you can get from solar, wind, from everything. The only problem is management. But if we call ourselves business school, we'll be only looking at, what can we do for corporates, which is clearly important. I mean, I would still think 75%, 80% of what we do should be there because they are enablers of society. But we have a lot to do with how government is run, how public systems are run, how roads are made, how money is spent, how the stock exchange works. All these are things that business schools are the ones who are going to bring leaders to do that.
उसके लिए तो politics join करना पड़ेगा, sir.
No, why? I mean, if you look at India, do you think India's progress is because of politics and political parties, or is it despite them? I believe it is despite them.
And moving forward, very well put, sir, very well put. If you have to give advice to, some of them are going to go to IIM Ahmedabad, some of them are going to go to SPJain, Hamara, Jugalbandi institution, or some of them would be sitting inside GIM. Any message you want to give to all my 20, 21-year-olds, sir? They are a confused lot. They want to do big in life. थोड़ा lazy भी हैं. मैं भी था, है ना? सब कुछ है इनमें. क्या आपके experience से, you've lived your life in corporate, been there, run an institution, set up an institution, 40 plus years of GIM now, totally.
For GIM?
GIM?
GIM is 32 years now.
32 years of GIM, 25 years you've been here.
Yes.
बनाया है और आपके alumni are like who's who of the country right now. क्या advice है sir इन सब के लिए?
So, I know what I'm going to say may not be as popular with the students. So one thing is true that, which institute you get into, it will give you some kind of an advantage. But that's not the only advantage. Irrespective of which institute you get into, if you are good, no one's going to stop you. So you will find, a Satya Nadella doesn't come from an IIT and Satya Nadella is not one in a million. There are enough number of examples like that. Similarly, I have a lot of people that I worked in my life who are kind of IITs and IIMs and all of that, and they didn't make it. So I think the important thing is, whilst you get in, don't expect that getting in means a ticket to success. That's one. The second, I think, is the focus is just too much. Especially if you get into a good institute, you get into GIM, you get into SPJain, you get into IIM Ahmedabad, ISB, any of this, then don't kind of then, narrow down and think, I have to get a job, You will get a job, yeah. I mean, you will not get into, if you get into any good institution, you are going to get a job. But they are so focused on getting on a job that they'll never get the right job. That's the challenge. Because, I find they function too much thinking about placement, which is a given when you get into a good institution. What I think is important, therefore, to look at is building how good you're going to be, what you're passionate about. So I find at least the ones who made it to CEOs and did really well, I see a lot of these people, by the time they finish their MBA, they've already, in their MBA, they've decided that these 5% of jobs is all that I'm going to apply to, because that's all that I'm interested in. They may not be the one job alone, there may be two different streams, either this or that. And prior to that, for the whole 1.5 year before that, that's all that they're preparing for.
Wow.
So I've seen kids across different institutions. I've seen at GIM, I've seen many more at SPJain, I've seen a lot at GIM also, I've seen a couple of IIMs also, some kids who, and I'm a marketing guy, so they'll come in and say, not only do I want to be a brand manager, I want to be a brand manager in automobile. And therefore what they've done is the entire period, they've done all their projects in automobile. So when an interviewer comes in and talks to them, and the interviewer has gone to 20 other institutions, this is the only kid who's only done automobile and is far superior to anybody else. And I think that is my message. Try and identify early enough what you want to do. Keep an alternate if you want. The second thing I want to do is I find this, a lot of all our business school, including GIM, we allow people dual specialization.
Yeah.
See, the logic for dual specialization is not risk hedging. It is interest. So for example, I know your background, I know you changed and you did other things because you got interested in newer stuff, right?
True.
It's not that you had a linear career saying, I'm in IT, I did only IT.
Yeah.
You got into a completely different business. All of us are like that. Many of us will have multiple things that you're interested in. Whilst I'm interested in brand and brands of consumer products, I'm also interested in healthcare financing, so I do both those things.
True.
So to allow that, we have two specialization. You know what most students do? They take it as risk. अगर फाइनेंस में नहीं मिला तो मार्केटिंग तो है ही. Now that will get you nowhere, because what happens is you're neither good for finance nor are you good for marketing. And everybody who is coming in to pick up people, as a recruiter, when you go to pick up people, the one thing you're looking for is what's driving this person,
His passion, how serious is he?
how focused they are, how
Clarity.
serious they are, how much of depth do they have. And if you do only, hedging the risk because you're worried, will I get a job? You will. Once you get in. Now, if you get into, maybe the 200th ranked business school, then you should worry about job milega ki nahi. You get into, the number 1, number 2, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50th business school you get in the country. Your job is waiting for you at the end. You don't want anything that's coming to you.
Yeah.
Prepare well. That's I think the important message that I think,
That's so amazing, sir. I can relate to everything what he said. I was also in the place committee towards the end because we were recession batch. And and it was hanging 2009 recession.
Yes,
the subprime.
yes.
People are calling this recession. I was like, bro, you haven't seen the Lehman Brothers crisis and stuff. But nevertheless, we've all survived, and you will also survive. Sir, such a humble guy, and thank you so much, sir, for sharing all the thoughts. Boys and girls, do to the like button for sure. और मुझे comment करके बताइए, what are your thoughts about business schools? Business schools are also being called as the placement agencies, which sir doesn't like, which no one like. When I was in school, I was also passionate about placements. कितना ज़रूरी है यार placement वगैरह? Comment करके बताइएगा और discussion करते हैं comment section के अंदर. Thank you, sir. Humble to have you on board again. Thank you.
Thank you.